Today on NewsWatch, and then there was one. It appears Donald Trump is the GOP candidate. We'll break down what's ahead in the 2016 race for the White House. Plus, more email trouble for Hillary Clinton. See why a judge might make her testify in court. And 70 years later, see how victims of the Holocaust are being honored today. Thanks for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Lori Johnson. The party conventions are still more than 2 months away, but already the presumptive presidential nominees are targeting one another. Yet both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton have some major obstacles to overcome. Gary Lane has the story.
And then there was one. Donald Trump is now alone in the Republican race for the White House. Wednesday, Ohio Governor John Kasich followed Ted Cruz's lead and also bowed out of the GOP field.
As I suspend my campaign today, I have renewed faith, deeper faith, that the Lord will show me the way forward.
Kasich's way forward may be to serve as Donald Trump's running mate. Kasich so far has dismissed that idea, but Trump is open to it.
Well, I would certainly consider him.
Trump said he'd also consider former opponents like Marco Rubio. He wants someone with legislative or political experience. Kasich could help Trump win the key state of Ohio, but other possibilities like Senator Joni Ernst or Governor Nikki Haley would possibly help Trump pull some of the female vote away from expected Democrat opponent Hillary Clinton. But not so fast, says Bernie Sanders. Campaigning in Kentucky, he says he has momentum. He's won 18 states in his race to become the Democrat presidential nominee. He predicts West Virginia will be win number 19.
And with your help, Kentucky will be the 20th state.
Sanders is also pledging to win the delegate-rich state of California. He'll need to turn superdelegates already committed to Hillary Clinton if he has any chance of denying her the nomination. Some polls show he'd do better than Mrs. Clinton in a matchup against Donald Trump. The latest CNN poll shows Secretary Clinton leading nationally against Trump 54 to 41%. Voters view Clinton as better on health care, education, and foreign policy, but Trump is viewed more trustworthy on the economy. While Trump says he's going to work hard in the days ahead to unify the Republican Party and raise as much as $1 billion for the fall presidential campaign, some members of the GOP establishment say Trump will not get their endorsement. Among them, former Presidents Bush 41 and 43, and some Republicans say they'll vote for Clinton. So while Trump may have some difficulties uniting a bruised Republican Party in the days ahead, Hillary Clinton has her own challenges. She must still overcome Mr. Momentum, Bernie Sanders, and the ongoing investigation of her email server, including a ruling by a federal judge Wednesday that she may have to give a deposition in the case. Gary Lane, CBN News.
As Gary mentioned, Clinton may have to testify about her email scandal. Her former staffers are being questioned over the next 8 weeks. But if questions remain that only Mrs. Clinton can answer, she could be deposed starting around July. The former Secretary of State used a private email to conduct government business. At issue is whether she did that just so she could skirt the laws requiring her to make those emails public because they contained damaging content. The U.S. Justice Department has told North Carolina that its latest bathroom ordinance violates civil rights. The law requires people to use restrooms corresponding to their gender at birth rather than the sex they identify with. But the Justice Department warns that if the state proceeds with enforcing the law, they could be sued and lose millions of dollars in federal funding. The department sent the letter to Governor Pat McCrory, who signed the amended bill in March. He was asked to confirm if North Carolina would throw out the law and allow people to use the bathrooms they choose. The Family Research Council is blasting President Obama for having the wrong priorities. The group criticizes him for focusing so much attention on bathroom laws and not enough attention on dealing with America's serious security threats like ISIS, Syria, and Russia.
Back here in the States, he's devoted 5 federal departments to investigate North Carolina with the threat of pulling federal funding from the state. While Iran and North Korea fire ballistic missiles, President Obama is demanding grown men have the right to use women's bathrooms.
The FRC says President Obama cares more about pandering to radical activists than having common sense. Today is the National Day of Prayer, an annual event America has observed for 65 years. Organizers say with war, terrorism, economic uncertainty, and a consequential election in November, we need to pray now more than ever. John Jessup has the story.
We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave, but the times and the world around us are in chaos.
If there was ever a day when God's people needed to grab a hold of God and to invite his manifest presence back into our midst, today is that day.
Dr. Tony Evans, prominent pastor, author, and teacher, is the honorary chair for the National Day of Prayer. He says there's power when people of faith unite.
When you have that many people at the same time coming together to call on God about the same thing, then that creates a synergy and an awesome power of presence.
The mission is to mobilize as many people as possible across the country to pray and repent, and to acknowledge America's need for spiritual, not earthly, solutions.
I think it's critical because we don't have solutions to the plethora of ills that are plaguing our nation on every single level, and that politics is not going to by itself and in and of itself bring about the changes for right that we're desperately needing in our country.
For the past 65 years, millions have prayed either locally or at the national event in Washington. Organizers say the call to pray for the nation is open to people of all faiths.
Anyone can participate, but we will not compromise the centrality of our message and our commitment to Jesus Christ. But we do not want to tell others that they cannot participate as long as we're not being told we cannot herald our faith forth.
Even as society's norms and values shift, Evans believes the Day of Prayer can also serve as a reminder of our national and spiritual heritage.
It has been under Christian leadership. The history of our country has been driven by a Judeo-Christian worldview, and so that has dominated the landscape. And it is important that we recognize the Lordship of Jesus Christ without apology in our emphasis on prayer.
This year's theme is Wake Up, America, highlighting the need to return to the God of our fathers and reverence for his holy name. John Jessup, CBN News, Washington.
The House Armed Services Committee has passed an amendment that ensures faith-based groups can serve the military without giving up their religious identities. Several organizations were restricted from providing services after President Obama's executive order concerning sexual orientation and gender identity. The bill ensures these vendors can still provide services like medical care and support for service members and their families without facing discrimination. British Prime Minister David Cameron will propose a bill this month aimed at cracking down on Islamic extremism in Britain. Cameron plans to announce the bill in the Queen's speech later this month. The measure would ban Islamic extremism groups from operating in Britain and would launch an investigation into Sharia courts. The bill would also extend vetting rules for employers to ensure radical Muslims are not employed or work with children and other vulnerable groups. Cameron says fighting extremism head-on is, quote, the struggle of our generation. Coming up, never again, how one Holocaust victim is using art and her amazing story of survival to keep the truth alive. Israelis marked Holocaust Remembrance Day today, standing in silence to commemorate the victims of the Holocaust. A 2-minute siren sounded throughout the country. When the siren blares, people stop their cars and stand silently to remember the 6 million Jews who died during the Nazi regime. During a ceremony Wednesday night, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said incitement against Jews preceded the Holocaust. He said that same kind of incitement still exists in the world today.
This incitement against Israel is rooted in extreme Islamism and in the Arab world. But for the last years, it was joined by incitement that is no less malicious from the Western world, British Parliament members, Swedish officials, public opinion leaders in France. I must say that anti-Semitism these days is creating odd pairings.
Netanyahu said incitement and lies about Israel are spread by social media in a way only Hitler could have imagined. He said that same social media needs to be used to spread the truth. Today, it's been 71 years since the liberation of the Auschwitz death camp. Of those who survived the Holocaust, around 200,000 now live in Israel. CBN's Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell met with one of them who has an amazing story to tell.
This painting is a recent one. I named it The Wounded Survivor.
Rita Kazimel-Brown was 7 years old when the Nazis invaded her hometown of Termot in Poland. In 1941, Nazis rounded up the Jews there and put them in a ghetto. Rita is now a recognized Holocaust artist who has worked as an art therapist. Her survival experience is the theme of many of her paintings.
I'm the wounded survivor. I always painted myself in white. I think it has to do with not so white nightgown that I survived the whole Holocaust in.
At 80, Rita is bubbly and vibrant. If not for her artwork and her story, you might never know her painful past. Yet she carries her memories with her every day.
I'm not sure if it's totally that you cannot heal the wound. It's something that still works in your memory, and it affects your daily life.
Her story is told in the book Portrait of a Holocaust Child, Memories and Reflections. Rita told CBN News how she and her family escaped the ghetto and survived in what they called the grub.
And my father went away for a few days, and what he did, he found another Christian family in a little town called Malaki, and there he dug a big pit under the stable, and it had a connection to the potato bin and a ledge you can open to the farmer's home. My father and my mother and the two little kids were with them, and only my little brother could stand up. And I was lying in the passageway from the pit to the potato bin. This is how we lived 20 months. We were hungry and fearful, and it was just a living hell. We called it, it was a living grave.
Being awake was a nightmare, she said, hour by hour, suffering day and night. Most of her father's 12 siblings died, where her little family of 5 stayed alive.
Being creative helped me survive, but not only survive, but keep my sanity.
In 2006, Rita revisited Poland for the first time to join the March of the Living. While there at Auschwitz, a spider bite took special significance.
And there is this black spider that bit me, and it looks a little bit like a swastika. Yeah. And it's also soaked with blood.
A mother of 2 and grandmother of 3, she's seen many miracles in her life.
We have kind of a survival instinct, which was very strong, but now it's weakening because when you get older, your defenses go down. And so the only thing that we have is because of our children and grandchildren. That's our victory.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Up next, we'll show you how children around the world are breaking the cycle of poverty. So don't go away. Europe has been struggling to meet the overwhelming needs of new migrants, so CBN and its partners are doing what we can to help. In Calais, France, part of a migrant camp known as the Jungle has been torn down, but a portion of the camp remains, and many of its occupants still hope to cross the English Channel and enter the United Kingdom. In the meantime, CBN is partnering with Convoy of Hope to demonstrate the love of Christ by providing the migrants with material and spiritual relief. This week, a team visited the camp and distributed basic necessities like shampoo, body wash, toothpaste, and 500 battery-free flashlights. The team met some Syrian refugees, university students from Aleppo who are hoping to continue their studies in England. CBN and Convoy of Hope will soon expand efforts to help migrants in Greece. CBN's Orphans Promise is also reaching out to at-risk families, showing them that with God, anything is possible, even the so-called impossible. Take a look.
When Noligua's husband abandoned her, she was suddenly left with no income and had 2 children depending on her. Hunan is a field laborer who cannot find work because local farms have suffered 2 years of bad crops. He's incurring more and more debt just to feed his family of 14. Grandmother Alyona works from sunrise to sunset, shelling nuts to earn $5 for her labor. With this, she buys food for her 5 grandchildren who are depending solely on her. Every person wants to be able to provide for themselves and their family, but sometimes life serves up some pretty difficult situations. At Orphans Promise, when we see children suffering, we want to step in with the best solution, not just to solve the immediate problem, but give long-term answers. Hunan is quite the family man. He told us, "The greatest thing in my life is my children." So imagine Hunan's despair when his debt at the local grocery store continued to grow, while his 2-room house was falling apart. We met this large family because the school-aged children attend our Orphans Promise training center at the local church in Merkashat, Armenia. They're learning English and computer skills that will enable them to get good jobs when they're older. Plus, they're flourishing in God-centered youth activities. Imagine everyone's surprise when the mayor heard of their plight and offered them a larger house. It was abandoned with broken windows, no kitchen, crumbling concrete stairs. But the church members, together with Orphans Promise, worked to bring the house to a livable condition. In their old house, the children had been crowded into 1 bedroom, but we made sure that now each child had a separate bed. They were pretty excited about that. Then we had another surprise, a cow, which would provide milk for these growing children, plus a little milk to sell for income. And we had a plan to get this family back on their feet.
So we want to pay your debt for you so you can start fresh.
Probably the best thing about this property was the large plot of land that came with it. We provided gardening tools and water irrigation. Now, instead of laboring for others, Hunan could work his own land, providing food for his family and food to sell. Alyona is a hard-working, resourceful woman who has raised 7 children and now has 24 grandchildren. You need only look at the pages of her Bible to see that she spends a lot of time with God. She's one of the few adults in her gypsy community in Western Ukraine who can read and write. So when one of her daughters left 5 young children for Alyona to raise, she did what she knew to do: work hard and trust God. Not long after, our Orphans Promise team came to her village. We saw children everywhere who were not allowed to attend public school, so we set up classes for them. Grandmother Alyona made sure her school-aged children attended. We also saw large, unused, fertile land and lots of hungry people. This village became one of Orphans Promise first seed project sites. Alyona helped to bring in the first harvest. It was an experience that taught many in the village that a little knowledge and lots of hard work can meet your needs and make you feel really good about yourself.
So, Alyona, how many ways can we prepare potatoes? I told you she's resourceful.
Noligwa lives in one of the poorest slums in Cape Town, South Africa. When her husband abandoned the family, it was just one more tragic but overlooked event in this community of more than 18,000 people. So she did the best thing she knew to do: earn money by watching other children. Her makeshift preschool became quite popular, and soon her small place was overflowing. But when the little shack fell into disrepair, moms pulled their children out. In a squatter community like this, there is no plan B. And Noligwa says she started crying herself to sleep and asking God for help. Not long after, Orphans Promise teamed up with the local church to build Noligwa a new, larger facility to care for the children. This preschool is one of 16 in this community that Orphans Promise is helping to rebuild or refurbish. Like the other owners, Noligwa is learning better teaching techniques, as well as how to run a successful business. All of the ladies involved in these renovations are part of a support group that is centered on God. And through this program, about 500 children are receiving a better start in life. With just a little help, Noligwa's preschool is flourishing. Now she can support her children while having the satisfaction of helping others. Through Orphans Promise self-sustaining programs, we are breaking the poverty mentality, providing the tools that allow people to work hard, meet their families' needs, take pleasure in that accomplishment, and live with dignity. At the same time, they are, by their own example, teaching their children. Now that's a great way to break the generational cycle of poverty.
You can find out more about what Orphans Promise does to help children around the world by going to their website. That's at orphanspromise.org. We'll be right back. Finally, today, Superbook received 2 prestigious awards. In the Philippines, it won the 2015 ANAC TV Seal for Top 10 Household Favorite TV Shows and the 2016 International Innovation Award by the National Religious Broadcasters. The Filipino people vote for the ANAC TV Seal, awarding it to family-friendly programs. And the award from NRB is for Superbook's work in social media, specifically for excellence in innovative use of media to proclaim the gospel of Christ. In 2015, Superbook had over 110 million TV views in the Philippines and 1.9 million Facebook likes. You can find out more about Superbook at CBN.com. And that's it for now on CBN's NewsWatch. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at CBNNews.com. Thanks for joining us today and have a great one. We'll see you next time.